Hey everyone, part 2 of the fandom. Okay, this is going to be fun. So, there is a war going on within the fandom of Star Wars right now. A big, stupid war. Now, Star Wars films have never been fully well done. If you were to see the original trilogy, if we had Rotten Tomatoes when the original trilogy came out, they would be probably some of the worst rated um, movies of the series, of the entire the three trilogies. I'll have a little image up and a link in the description about all that. So, conflict and different perspectives and visions of Star Wars has been around since the original trilogy, but now it's getting worse. So, we had the prequel trilogy, and while I think they weren't perfect, neither was the original trilogy. They were great for what they did. Same as the original trilogy. But then we get to the sequel trilogy, and here it's just an all-out war. It's an all-out war if you like them, if you're in the middle, or if you hate them. Because to somebody else's perspective in this fandom, you are an idiot for thinking that. For liking it, hating it, or enjoying it, or anything else. You're going to get attacked. And there's so many people out there that follow other people on the internet, and they're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, it's great. This guy says so. He's got 1 million subscribers. It's great. How dare you say it's bad? It's like, so? Because he's got 1 million subscribers doesn't mean he's right. On that, I was given a viewpoint on the fandom that I find interesting. I was on Reddit, of course, Reddit being Reddit, and they told me about someone who they called Jess or something like that, who's like, oh, this person's perfect, they articulate their points well, and they're right. I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. I watched a few videos, and my god, she's somewhat famous. I think she's got like 200,000 subscribers. And I'm watching her, and I'm like, wow, she's extremely negative, and she sounds like that sort of person that would put you down because she thinks you're wrong, you know. Oh, you like this, you're an idiot, you're a fool, you're wrong, get out of here. Like, that's what she sounded like, and that's what I got, that's the sort of vibe that I got off of her. She's too smart for her own boots in a way. May not be, I didn't watch every video, I watched like 5 minutes of like 6 videos or something like that, and I was just like, wow. All the ones that were negative, like Justice League bad, or The Last Jedi good or bad, or, you know, all that crap, and I was like, alright, okay. She's not somebody I agree with perspective-wise, so I thought to myself, what do I do? I'll watch some more, and one of the videos that I was linked to from Reddit was one of her talking about Star Wars on Screen Junkies or whatever, and she had a moment there that I completely disagree with 100%, that I find to be dumb. So, they were talking about Last Jedi and how the debate was about how the Force was used and how the Last Jedi kind of screwed it over. And she jumped and went, no, I think the prequels did it worse. They did it terribly. Anakin being born of the Force and being of a virgin birth and the midichlorians. And right then I had to stop the video. Because to me, this made her sound, first up, if she did her research, she wouldn't have said that. Second of all, she sounded right here like a lot of fans are these days, like they own Star Wars. Star Wars is their own personal thing, and that anything created by Lucas and all that is wrong. That's the part of the fandom that I fucking despise and hate. But let's go on, shall we? So, she's talking about all this and that. First up, doing your research, you'll find out that the Force was based around mythology and religion. The idea of Anakin being a chosen one, being of a virgin birth, not only comes together for the religious side of things, but also for the mythological side of things, but also the theme of science fiction fantasy that she's created, and also the fantasy side that Lucas created with this universe. It fits in with all those categories that he was inspired by and what he can do with this universe because of what it is. So that fits. That's why I was a bit strange by why she made that comment, because it makes no sense. This is what Lucas was inspired by. This is how it fits. It does fit. Now, you also have to remember that the Force in the original trilogy, we didn't get much of it. We got it mainly in the prequel trilogy, which made sense. We were focusing on the Jedi of the past. We're going to see their perspective on their religion, the Force, the Jedi religion itself, and their dogmatic views and so on and so forth. So the idea of us learning more about the Force makes sense in context of the prequels, but also in context of the entire universe that we were given on it. Remember, 4, 5, and 6 was about Force ghosts and Jedi that were too old and really didn't have much time to teach Luke everything. So I find that viewpoint and that opinion to be idiotic. Okay, I think it's an idiotic viewpoint to have for many fans. Not to attack the person itself, but I just find the idea of it to be idiotic. But then we go to midi-chlorians. Midi-chlorians to me is the interesting thing about the whole thing. They do not destroy the concept of the Force. The Force is still its own thing. It's still a mystical thing, I guess is the best way to put it. However, midi-chlorians is the bridge between the science and the fantasy. You get told in episode 1 that midi-chlorians have a symbiotic nature with the Force. Basically saying that they're the reason why the Force is around everyone. You might not like it, but it is the scientific viewpoint of that. But it's not the Force. Like I said, it's that symbiotic nature with the Force. The Force flows through them, they throw through us. It's a little bit of a scientific thing, but it makes sense within context. It's to show that we, in this universe, have that ability, but not as much as we think. So, in the Star Wars universe, if you have a lot of midi-chlorians, you're a Jedi. You have the ability to become a Jedi or a Sith. Now, without that midi-chlorians and the Force is everywhere, if everyone's got the ability to use the Force, which is what I thought when I watched the original trilogy, why aren't they full of Jedi and Sith itself? And if everyone has the potential to become a Jedi or a Sith, why don't they just have training seminars everywhere or something like that to become? You can become the Sith or whatever. So his viewpoints on the midi-chlorians I like, because it kind of settles in the fact that anyone can be a Jedi or a Sith, but only if they have those high midi-chlorian counts. The Force is still there within everyone, but the higher the count, in a way, the more they can use the Force. It was just a scientific reason to explain why this galaxy isn't full of Jedi or Sith, because it's the kind of the realistic side of things too. When you make a sci-fi fantasy universe, you still need some sort of realism with its own history and its own rules. That's what the midi-chlorians are, the rules to the Force, but the Force is still the Force, its own dimensional thing. But on that though, midi-chlorians, look at midi-chlorians like air. Air for us is everywhere. We can feel it, we can sense it. It's an invisible force. However, if you go into the details of the makeup of the structure of air, it has its own scientific method behind it. That to me is what the midi-chlorians were, that scientific method behind science and how we use the Force. Hopefully that made sense. It's annoying. You go through the whole thing multiple times in your head and you're like, alright, that makes sense. And then you go and say, and it's like, fuck, that made no sense. Or it made sense, but you don't know if it made sense to you. It made sense to me. Hopefully it made sense to you. But that's my view on the midi-chlorians and why I thought that whole entire debate kind of felt flat, because said person did not do their research nor had a perspective that I can respect, I guess is the way to say it. But hey, it's what they want to believe, and it's what many fans want to believe. And that's the thing. There's so many perspectives out there for the fandom that we can't win. You can't win. You can't. You cannot win with Star Wars now. The fandom is so big after 40 plus years of generational changes and perspectives and those that grew up with it. I know in 10 to 15 years time, people will say that the sequel trilogy is the best Star Wars trilogy. I am going to disagree, but I'm going to respect that opinion. I don't care. You go like what you like, I like what I like. If we're going to fight about it, let's have a good discussion, not just call everybody an idiot because of their perspectives. Although I understand that me thinking that the perspective beforehand was idiotic, I find that idiotic because I don't find there's much oomph there for it to be a plausible viewpoint, if that makes sense. But it also made me understand a few certain things too, because when I said this sort of thing on Reddit, I got downvoted as you wouldn't believe. And I thought to myself, why did I get downvoted? Then I thought to myself, is it sort of a hive mind? Why do we fans have, or people in general, have this hive mind toward things? Why is it that when somebody that has 1 million fans, or a lot of fans, up to 300,000, 300,000 or more, why is it when they are super negative, but they articulate themselves well, we automatically treat that as fact? But when somebody has something that's insanely positive, that's very well articulated, we treat that as false. Like when I talk about the prequels, there is a lot of perspectives I think that are positive, that I've talked about in many other videos. But I always get a lot of people that say, no, you're wrong. What is wrong with you? What is, no, this person said this, and I respect their opinion more so than yours. And it's like, but why? Why do we automatically jump to the negative perspective that's on the surface sounds fairly well, but like I said before with the one about the midichlorians and Anakin, I automatically went, no. She articulated herself well, but I don't have to. I disagreed wholeheartedly. I didn't have to agree with her. I didn't agree with her. I disagreed beyond belief, and I explained why. And when I explain why, there are people out there that go, "Yep, I agree," and then there's gonna be a lot of people that go, "No, I don't." And that's the fandom as well. The ownership and the fact that they have that ammo. Some people are going to use the ammo that Mark Hamill did not like, the sequel trilogy. He doesn't really like 7, he doesn't really like 8. They are going to use this as ammo and say, hey, Luke Skywalker doesn't like this series, so you can go fuck off. That's ammo for him. But then people are going to say, yeah, well, Jeremy Jaynes said this, so fuck you. And, it's just going to keep going and going and going because we use anything we can as ammo. Said person with this many views, said person with this, said celebrity said this, said director said this. Like me, I could use the fact that Mark Hamill loves the prequels. I could use that, but I don't need to. I've got my own set of rules to say. I've got my own set of perspectives to say. I don't need to use that outside stuff, although we can. And I just find all that interesting. How we use different opinions, perspectives, and themes of Star Wars, and we flock to it by changing that perspective. So most people born in 70, at least watching in 77 Star Wars, the first one, there is a good chance that they're going to despise the prequels and the sequel trilogy. And they're going to have some great reasons, they're going to have some bad reasons, they could end with just, it's not my childhood. Fair enough. And some people will use that, I wasn't around, back in my day, we never had this about the Force, we never knew that, we never had this, we never had that, we never needed that, we never needed this, all we had was Chewie and Han and Leia and Luke, and that's all that mattered. And people will eat that up and be like, yep, they're right. And obviously the other stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. I think, to me it makes sense, but yeah. So that always interests me as to why we just flock to negativity more so than positivity, like CinemaSins. Everybody loves watching those, and there are people out there that watch CinemaSins and go, yeah, he's right, this film was terrible. Just because a film's got negatives towards it doesn't mean it's bad. But then you watch something like Cinema Wins, and it's like, no, this film is terrible. I can't believe you said that about Revenge of the Sith. It's a terrible film. Or it's like, no, it's actually pretty great. Or, oh, this Last Jedi stuff, all the positive about Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. No, you're wrong. I can't believe you have positives about this film. Like, it's just very strange to me. And that is the fandom we live in Star Wars. That it's always going to be a war. We can't win this war. We can't stop this war. This war's going to keep going till Star Wars or we as human beings are killed off. Like, no one's belief. We can't win. We absolutely can't win. And don't get me wrong, some criticism is valid. I think the sequel trilogy has the most valid criticism, the most negatives in the Star Wars trilogies, and just overall is just unimportant overall. At least for me. People that agree, people that disagree. And I'm sure me saying that's going to get me a war and a lot of fans if this gets big enough. I don't know. So, yeah. Hopefully my ramblings has made a lot of sense. I even wrote it down, but I've had to restart this freaking GoPro so many times. And I've gone through everything I've said so many times, it's just coming out now because I'm getting tired. But I do hope that my perspective has made you go, wow, that's interesting. In the end, though, know this. If you like something, hate something, or in the middle, there's always a group out there that agrees with you. I love the prequels. There is a group out there that loves the prequels as well, and we have some great chats on it. Chats about what's positive and what works and what doesn't work, and different perspectives on what doesn't work and what does work. It's very interesting stuff. Same with the original trilogy, because it wasn't perfect either, and same with the sequel trilogy. I've learned a few positives via talking to people about it, and I've heard a few more negatives that I agree with. It was all up to you as a fan, what you believe in and how it goes. Anyway, that is Aussie Viking out. I shall see you all in Valhalla. Hopefully you enjoy this video.